I want to start this video by asking you to imagine a house in your mind. This house is your mind. One room of this house belongs to the past. Inside, the ghosts of your regrets, unfinished conversations, and people you haven't forgiven wander around. Another room belongs to the future you are yet to live. It hides unlived bad scenarios, monsters of anxiety, and fears that whisper, "What if it happens?" And you are stuck in the narrow, unlit corridor between these two noisy rooms. That is, the present. You spend your life in that corridor, listening to the voices from the two rooms, being tossed back and forth. What we call having so many troubles today is exactly this: living in this house. It is surrendering control of our minds to the ghosts of the past and the monsters of the future. And we still wait in that corridor, hoping the noises will simply cease, without stopping for a single moment to say, "I am the owner of this house." Today, this mental exile is like an epidemic. Even in the smallest moments, not just in great tragedies, our minds hijack us. We analyze a short message from someone for hours. We create disaster scenarios because a loved one is online but hasn't texted us. We replay a mistake we made years ago, over and over in our minds, as if it happened yesterday. This is because our mind is like a loyal but foolish guard tasked with protecting us. Its job is to sense danger, but it is so loyal that it cannot distinguish between a real danger and an imaginary one. It sounds the alarm bells for an enemy that hasn't even set out yet. It continues to dig trenches for a war that long been over. This situation slowly turns us into the living dead. One day, we find ourselves as someone whose mind is elsewhere even during the most beautiful moments, whose inner voice won't shut up even while talking to loved ones, and who cannot stop the senseless film rolling in their brain when they lie down at night. But if we manage to take back the key to that house, we won't have to live in that dark corridor, will we? Instead, we can become the kind of person who can close the doors of the rooms, open the windows to let in fresh air and sunlight, and most importantly, master their own mind. Of course, we have all tried to silence those voices, perhaps, many times, but this struggle is like wrestling with a ghost. No matter how many times you punch, it's futile, because the enemy is not concrete. But don't worry. By the end of this video, you will learn to stop fighting those ghosts and start learning how to deal with them and how to completely reclaim control of the house in your mind. But before we start, we need to understand how that loyal but foolish guard, our brain, produces these troubles. Because if we don't know the enemy's operating principles, we will spend our lives forcing the wrong doors. What exactly is trouble? When you look in the dictionary, the word trouble corresponds to anxiety, sorrow, or a distressing situation. But this definition is like describing the ocean with a single drop of water. Trouble is not just a situation. Trouble is a web of thoughts and emotions that our mind weaves around that situation, consuming us from within. Imagine a moment. Your phone rings at midnight. It's someone you love dearly. In that moment, the name on the screen is a naked event. But what happens in your mind from that second on? Your heart pounds, your breath catches. Why are they calling at this hour? Something bad must have happened. Did they have an accident? Are they in the hospital? This is what troubling is. Before you even answer the phone, with no concrete information available, your mind has written the worst-case scenario, and you have already started to feel the pain of that scenario. Epictetus, who was born a slave and whose very name means acquired, said a sentence 2,000 years ago that would completely change human history. What disturbs men's minds is not events, but their judgments on events. The phone ringing at night doesn't disturb you. What disturbs you is your judgment that the phone call is a harbinger of disaster. Let's dive a little deeper. Misfortune begins when we desperately desire something and fail to achieve it. Unhappiness arises when something we avoid or fear happens to us. Trouble, then, is born from the battle between reality and our expectations. When we overvalue a possession, a position, or even our own body, we are essentially handing our rope to the enemy who seeks to hang us. The fear of losing them turns us into slaves. One of Seneca's most important messages is this: the only true good in life is to be virtuous. Things like health, wealth, beauty, or their opposites, illness and poverty, are neither good nor bad. They are merely indifferent things that should be disregarded. Happiness is not possible by possessing these indifferent things, but by being able to remain virtuous in all circumstances. At this point, Stoicism takes the definition of trouble one step further and slaps the truth of what the real disaster is into our faces. For them, the biggest disaster is not losing money, getting sick, or dying. The biggest disaster is the decay of one's character, losing one's honesty and honor, the petrification of the soul. Most of us are terrified of our bodies being paralyzed, but we do not even care about our soul slowly becoming numb, petrified. Someone who lies or acts unjustly thinks they have not been harmed because nothing is missing from their wallet, yet they have experienced the truly great loss. They have lost their character, their most valuable asset. In summary, trouble is a disease of the soul stemming from assigning wrong meanings to external events, trying to control things we cannot control, and most importantly, forgetting what is truly important, virtue, and chasing after indifferent things. Why does our mind do this? Why does it have the potential to turn a peaceful moment into hell in an instant? The answer is hidden in the structure of our brain. Number one, our brain is a survival machine, not a happiness machine. Over millions of years of evolution, our brain's priority was not for us to be happy or to thrive. It had a single purpose: to keep us alive. For our ancestors, the slightest rustling of leaves could mean a tiger. Those who ignored the rustle, thinking it was just the wind, became prey. But those who thought, "It's definitely a tiger," focusing on the worst-case scenario, survived and passed their genes on to us. Therefore, we are the descendants of a lineage that survived by focusing on the worst. This is why our mind is programmed to perceive every uncertainty, even in today's modern world, as a threat from a tiger. Number two, our mind is like Velcro for the negative and a Teflon pan for the positive. In psychology, this is called the negativity bias. This is why you instantly forget the 10 good things you experienced during the day, but get stuck on a single negative comment made to you for days. Our brain is designed to remember and focus on potential dangers, the negatives. This is why troubles stick to our minds like Velcro and don't easily come off. Because of these two fundamental settings, we literally turn ourselves into trouble-producing machines. We do this so often that it becomes a habit, a way of life. Constantly thinking the worst begins to look like a safety measure to us. As the Stoic sage Seneca said, we begin to pay the interest on a debt that has not yet come due. We suffer today the pain of a separation that is not yet happening, a failure that has not occurred, an illness that is not confirmed. Trouble, then, is not an external enemy, but the product of an old software that our own mind uses to protect us,
but is now harming us. As long as we do not notice this software, we will continue to be its slave. So, how do we update this old software? How do we calm the noise in our minds? How do we teach that loyal but foolish guard the difference between a real danger and an imaginary one? Now we can move on to the steps that will allow you to completely reclaim control of that house in your mind. The 5 steps to reclaiming control of your mind. Step 1. Separate the event and the judgment. Now is the time to face a truth that may shock you. The things that trouble, upset, or anger you are not the events that happen to you. They are the labels you attach to the events, your own judgments. This is the cornerstone of Stoic philosophy. We are disturbed not by what happens,